So I've shown you my espaliered trees before, and I've got apple and pear out there, and I absolutely love the look of the espaliered trees and the functionality of it, because we're going to be able to pick fruit for years to come right at our own height. But in order to do that, we've got to keep them maintained. So there's two things we're going to do out there today, and the first thing is we've got to tie the new branches down. I'm getting a ton of new growth right now. Today's July 5th, and we're right in the middle of summer, and all those trees are just putting on tons of new growth. We want to get those guys tied down to the wires, and then we also want to prune back that new growth so that it forces the plant to, thanks Johnny, so it forces the plant to put on fruiting buds, or spurs they're called. So let's get out there right now and let's take a look at what we've got. So these are our fruit trees, and as you can see, they are completely out of control, and I've got to get these guys pruned back or we're going to have problems. Right now, these are just new branches that the tree's sending off. They're really tall. I've got like 2 foot of growth on some of these guys, and they really are going to serve no purpose except to get way high up in the sky there where we can't reach the fruit. So what we need to do right now while it's summertime is prune these guys back to encourage the fruit spurs to start growing on down lower on those trees, or on the branches anyway. And then next spring, when everything starts waking up, hopefully we'll get more fruit to start coming out instead of all these water branches. Alright, so the first thing I desperately need to do, you see this new growth here, and this is where the training kind of ended last year. I've got this guy tied back with some sisal twine here. And now we've got this new growth, and I need to continue the training. So I'm going to pull this branch down, and I'm going to tie this guy to the wire here so that it continues its growth out down the rest of the wire, because I want it to come all the way down to this T-post. Now I want to show you something. I did this a little backwards last year, and I want to show you why it's important to do this now. So here's my Bartlett pear tree right here, and you can see tons of new growth coming off of this guy, so it desperately needs some pruning. Sorry about the weeds in the background there, it makes it a little harder to see the tree, but let me show you what's going on. So I'm trying to train this tree across this wire here, and I want it to go all the way down to this T-post. Now last summer, this is what we had. We had all this growth. It wasn't quite as much because it was the first year I planted these trees, but we had all this growth shooting off right now. And right now, the growth is supple and soft because it's summertime. But I actually waited. I left all this new growth until last winter when it was hardened off. And then I pulled the branches down along the wire. And let me show you what we got. The apples aren't as much of a problem, but these pears, this Bartlett pear here, you can see it ended right here. It had some dieback on this branch right, let me get past this leaf. Right here, it had some dieback on this branch and shot off a new sucker in the summertime. And I left it grow until winter when it was hard. The wood was real lignified and hard before I tried to attach it to this wire. And you see the problem I ran into, which is not a big problem. It actually adds some character to the branch, but it curves down, and then because it wasn't very supple, I'm going to have this crook. Now I'm going to continue this down over time, and you're always going to have little knobs and knuckles along here as you're trying to train the thing, but that's pretty pronounced there. And it was tough to bend. It wanted to break right here. I had to slowly do this and then tie it down to the wire here very carefully, because I could hear it starting to crack right here a little bit. Now it's healed up and it's doing great, but it's so much easier to do this now. Now you can see right here in the branch, see if I can get in there good enough. Right here in the branch, you can see how it's growing up. All the branches want to grow up towards the sun. So I'm going to have another knuckle there, but it's so much easier to work with right now, and I'm going to be able to tie it to this fence. So that's the first thing we're going to do with all of these fruit trees. We're going to go ahead and tie them down and get them following their path along the wire. Now I like to use this sisal twine. I've got a roll of it, and I just cut off chunks of it. It's real good. It can rot over time and just fall off the tree, although I'll probably come back and snip the old stuff off, but I just cut little sections of that. And we're going to pull this apple down and then tie off this section, leaving a little bit of space between the branch and the wire, because you don't want to choke off the branch. It actually will grow in size, of course, in diameter, and you don't want it to be too tight as it grows. So let me show you that. So So you can see where I tied it right there, and it's not, you know, there's plenty of give to it, but it's following the same path. And I don't like to, some people I've seen, they actually take the branch and twist it around as they're tying it. I don't want to do that because over time this is going to harden off, this branch, and it will become formed around that wire, and I don't want wire growing through my tree as it gets bigger and bigger. I suppose you could cut it and slide it out the long way, but I really don't want to do that. I've just been tying these branches right along the top of the wire, so eventually I can remove the wire someday. We'll see if that ever becomes a reality, but I'm going to continue now tying this guy down. Now you can see it's already following the path, so much easier to do in the summertime. All right, so I'm going to finish tying up all these trees, following the wire here, and then we'll talk about pruning. All right, so I've got all the branches tied up horizontally, and that part is done. Now we're getting down to the fun part, and that is the pruning. Let's take a look at these guys and see what we're going to do. All right, so let's take a look at these trees and see what type of branches we've got. So there's two types of branches, and the first one right here are just the main tree branches. These are going to grow up really tall. They're water suckers. They're just going to shoot straight up into the air and not provide any fruit until down the road when they start shooting off little fruit spurs from the side. And that is the second type of branch, the fruit spur. So the fruit spurs, you can see, here's one with a pear right on it now. And they're very short little branches that shoot off and generally have a bunch of leaves all kind of crammed down on top of each other there. You can see that's only about 1 inch long, and then it's got some fruit coming off of it. Here's another fruit spur right here. And actually this one has a lot of them. You can see this was last year's growth right here, and then this is this year's growth. It's another little fruit spur there. All the leaves are tightly compacted down in there. There's the node spacing is real tight. Here's another fruit spur, and you can actually see a pear on the end of that guy. So what our goal is, we're not going to take any of those fruit spurs off. We want to leave all of those on. What we want to do is prune back these big sucker branches that are just going to shoot straight up into the air. And this is where we want to prune them. So you can see this is one of them right here. You want to look down near the base where it first started growing in this early springtime, and you can see right here immediately up this branch it's got one little node, and then there's 3 leaves all together. And then if you move up a little further, you've got another leaf, and then a separation, and then another leaf, and then a separation and another leaf. So what you want to do is look for that little spot right there on the branch where it first comes up, that group of leaves. They're called basal leaves. And then you want to count 1, 2, 3 leaves up and snip it off, and then all this growth is going to be gone. And all of these pear and apple trees are going to be the same for that. So let's go ahead and do that and show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so like I said, you can see the 3 little basal leaves right in here, and I'm going to count up 3 of these main leaves, and we're going to go ahead right here, let's show that, right here, and snip maybe up about a 1/2 inch above. So you can see now, let's get this leaf out of the way. You can see now I've got the 3 basal leaves, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 leaves. We've snipped it off. And what that's going to do now is on these main branches that are shooting up, there's a higher concentration of auxins in it, not rooting, but hormones in it that make it want to shoot up and reach for the light and become dominant. And when you snip that down, it redirects the plant's hormones down into other side buds here that are going to shoot off, and the hope is that the new buds that shoot off will become those little fruit branches that we were talking about, the fruit spurs. And then next year we'll get a much higher production of fruit on this guy, and we'll typically get a better production of fruit spurs by doing the pruning right now at this time of the summer versus in the winter time. If you do the pruning in the winter time, it's going to send more of these branches up. As you can see, I did the pruning last winter, and I'm just getting tons of these sucker branches coming up. But by doing the pruning now, we're going to get some fruit spurs starting to grow on these side branches, and then they're going to set and get ready to start producing fruit next spring. So I'm going to continue on with all these guys and do my pruning just like I showed you, and show you what everything looks like when it's done. Alright, so I've got this first tree done. You can see, look how scraggly all those guys down the way look here versus this one right here. Let me back up and get a good shot of it. You can see how nice that looks now that it's pruned up, and this is going to be the scaffolding for all of our fruit to grow on. All those little fruit spurs are going to start growing off of the buds that are down below where we pruned, and we're going to get hopefully a ton more fruit next year. Now, you know, you never know what the weather's going to do or what the seasons are going to do, but you know, you can hope for the best, and you can prune as if it is going to work out good. The other thing that you can do, well, probably the last thing that I would say, is I'll probably come back through here, and where a lot of these, see, I missed one. I'll have to snip that little guy back a little ways, but one of the things you can do is start pruning away the inside branches. I'm going to leave everything along the row here on each side, top and bottom, but some of these branches in here, see how these guys are both pointing inward? I may snip this one off right here, and I may snip this guy off here, because you want everything to kind of like leave these guys. You want these to grow outward and out that way like they're doing, but you don't want this stuff growing in upon itself. You want to give plenty of room for air to circulate in there and keep the plant healthy, but it's already really starting to look nice. I'm going to go ahead and finish pruning up all the rest of these guys all the way down, and I'll show you the end result. Oh, real quick, one more thing I didn't mention. So I've reached the end of the line here for this branch, this lateral branch here, and it's up against this post. So it's come as far as I want it to go. I'm going 10 foot between each tree from one end all the way to the other end of the tree. And so I'm going to come back here and I'm going to snip this off right here, and that's going to force more growth from the branch back, and it's just going to become a fuller, healthier plant. Alright, so I finished up 3 of the trees so far, and I've got to say they are looking pretty nice, man. So I love how these guys look, and I had to come in after a little while after I got done with all 3 of these apple trees, because it just got super hot yesterday. But I am gonna get these pear trees done. You can see the difference. Let's walk down here and take a look. Doesn't that look nice? It's just all pruned up real nice. And now, because we pruned this up, these guys right here, I mean, these were way up here. I mean, there were another 2 foot of growth on that. But all these little buds down here, it will encourage them to have little fruit spurs come out of them, and we'll just get a higher percentage of fruit spurs, so that next year we get a lot more fruit on this tree. And then it's got plenty of leaves left on it still to just be little solar panels and collect energy and just store it in the roots for the winter, so that next year we can get tons of fruit coming off of these guys. Now you can see the difference. Look at the pears, man. They're just out of control, just like the apples were. But doesn't that just look cool once you get it done? And it just keeps everything nice and contained and right at a perfect height where you can walk up to it and pick. Now I'm probably going to eventually let these things get up to about this high. Next year I'll probably get a few of these buds breaking and coming up a little higher, and they'll shoot up again, and then I'll prune them back, and I'll probably end up, you know, just about my eye height here, so that I've got plenty of tree to pick fruit off of. But I just love this espaliered look, man. It is just so cool. So I'll get the rest of the pears done here, and we'll show you what they look like when they're done. And there they are, guys, all finished up. I love that shot. Isn't that cool? Just a single row right down there. You can walk on either side and pick fruit. I just love this espalier style of pruning fruit trees. Had to pull a few weeds there so I could get this shot from this side, but we got to get this area cleaned out, man. But isn't that cool? Just pretty dang slick. I just love how these things look. That is just so cool. Let's go check out them pear trees. As I was pruning, I noticed some more pears I didn't know were there before. I found one right in here. We got a little Bartlett right there. Little Bartlett over here. We're getting some size on them, guys. I think there's one more somewhere in there. And then we've got our Camas pear. And I picked out these varieties just because of the pollination. So we've got Bartlett over here, then we've got Camas, and then we've got Moonglow, and they were all supposed to pollinate each other very well. So that's why the varieties. I definitely wanted the Bartlett, and so I picked these varieties out to match with that one. But it turned out, this is the Comus, and it's got a couple little pears, but I actually picked the Moonglow not because I knew anything about the pears, but because I was just hoping for, because this particular variety, this Moonglow, was supposed to pollinate the Bartlett and the Comus really well, and it's turned out to actually have more pears on it than any of them. And they look really neat. They've got that reddish kind of tint to it. So pretty cool, huh? We got these guys all pruned back, and they're looking really nice. And they're gonna do real well for us come next year. All those little buds that were gonna be shoots, just shooting straight up for the sky, are now gonna be, hopefully, most of them, little fruit spurs. And that's because we pruned them right now through the summertime. Now you can see a little bit of growth there at the bottom. And this pear also has some. We've got the rootstock there starting to shoot up. And I didn't prune all that back for a reason. I think I talked about this in one of my other videos. I'm gonna save these guys. I'm gonna let them grow right now, and I'm actually gonna do some stooling where I can put a pot around all of this, and I'm gonna fill it full of bark and get them to grow roots. So I've got some rootstock so that I can do some grafting of these different varieties of pears, and I've already got the nice dwarf rootstock right there to work with. So anyway, I'll make a video of that when I end up doing that, but we'll go ahead and show you guys how to stool these guys and get your own rootstock. I am just really happy with how these guys all turned out. Let's get one more shot here, all the way down. Just really cool looking. Right at the perfect height for picking fruit. Well guys, as usual, I still haven't gotten around to putting this video completely together, and it's been a few weeks since the last shot I took, so we might as well get out there and do an update and take a look at these little fruit trees and see all the new buds and how they're developing. Let's go. Isn't that just a beautiful shot, guys? Love, love, love these espaliered trees, man. They're just so cool to look at. And they're just so awesome, man. We're gonna be able to pick fruit right at our level. Here they are. Like I said, it's been a few weeks, and we've got all them little buds. Remember, we came along and we pruned back all these branches. We pruned them all back, and now we've got a lot of little buds opening up right here. And it looks to me like these guys are going to be fruit buds, fruit spurs right there. And the reason I'm thinking that is because they've got so many leaves on each of these little buds that are sprouting, and usually the fruit spurs always have a ton of leaves. See, look at that. There's a shorter fruit spur that's grown this year, and it's got a lot of little leaves coming out on a short little stem. And I have a feeling all these little guys are going to be fruit spurs, because that's what they tell us. That's what they tell us, guys. If you prune in the summer, you're going to get fruit the next spring, or you're going to get flowers the next spring, you're going to get fruit the next fall. If you prune in the winter, you're going to get them tall suckers. There we go. It's looking good. Let's look at the next one. Johnny's putting his 2 cents in. Look at that. That's a fruit spur, man. That is awesome. That is just awesome. I'm impressed. And these plants have only been in the ground 2 years. They're only a few years older than that. And, you know, I was a little worried at first, thinking, are we doing the wrong thing by letting these things go to fruit and trying to get them to fruit so young? But the truth is, they've been in all this manure and wood chips for so long now, for a couple of years, and this stuff is so rich, I think they're going to do fine. I think they're going to just do awesome. I'm not even worried about it. Look at this, guys. These are fruit spurs, man. We're going to have a lot of apples next year. Look at that. Pretty awesome, huh? Now, there's a couple shoots here. This is, I think this is Golden Delicious, Yellow Delicious. Yep. There it is, Yellow Delicious. And this one right here is a little sucker that's coming up, but that's okay. I'm going to leave it, because my plan is I'm going to get my own rootstock going. We'll see if I have any ready by then. But I'm going to get some rootstock going, and I'm going to take these cuttings as scions next year, and we're going to graft them onto our own rootstock. Now that may be a sucker right there. I don't know if that's going to be a fruit spur, but a lot of these, I believe, are fruit spurs. We'll find out. Let's go down and take a look at this guy. Look at that. All that short little growth with all those leaves. I think we're going to get this thing figured out, guys. I really do. I think we're going to figure it out. Figure it out. The pear trees are coming along a little more slowly. You can see the buds. It's been the same amount of time since I pruned them, but they're just taking a little bit longer. I guess that's just the nature of pears. They're just taking a little bit longer for their new little buds to shoot up, but we'll see what happens. And that's all the pear varieties doing the same thing, just taking a little bit longer. Especially this one. This is the Comus. That's the Comus. You can see they're not all the way out yet. There's our moon glow with all in pears. They are looking good. Can't believe we've got so many pears on that young tree. Pretty cool, huh, guys? Alright guys, so that's all there is to it. Took a little effort up front, but in the end, hopefully next year we're going to get a ton more fruit spurs and a lot more production. It'll be year 2 in the ground, or after 2 years of them in the ground, and I'm really excited to see how this turns out next year. So for a heavier fruit production, prune in the summertime, and if you want more water sprouts shooting up and you want them trees to grow tall and big, prune in the wintertime. So hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please like it, subscribe if you want to follow along. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.